And we are back, and we just finished watching 2022's Intergalactic, rated TV MA with a runtime of 1 hour and 33 minutes. We caught this on Netflix, and I think it's the companion piece to Kid Cudi's album by the same name. This is the story of Jabari, voiced by Kid Cudi, a charming, streetwear clad artist on the cusp of real success. After a chance in run-in with his cool new photographer neighbor, Meadow, Jabari has to figure out whether he can make space for love in his life. That's according to IMDb, which I guess sums it up. This is a story about two young people finding their way to each other and doing, I guess, the hard work of being in a relationship. I'm here with G today, and we're going to talk about this film. G, why did you want to see this film?
I saw on Netflix the art, or like the way it was done, like the way it looked, and I thought that it looked really cool.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
The 3D style of movies.
Yeah, it's very colorful. It's definitely an homage to the city. I think the city, we talk about New York City playing a sort of almost supporting character here as well. And I think it does that here as well. They don't really, they talk about, I think they lived in the city, but they also go to other boroughs. I think they mentioned Queens, they mentioned Brooklyn. So the city is very prominently displayed, almost like a secondary character here. But again, the focus is on Jabari and Meadow, who's voiced by the lovely Jessica Williams, and I guess how they come together and sort of almost immediately fall into this like pretty deep relationship.
Yeah, they didn't really take it slow here.
No, they didn't. And then I guess something happens. I don't know if we want to spoil it.
No, this is fairly recent.
You
should go watch it.
Yeah, but something happens that sort of fractures their relationship a bit. And then the wise women in their lives, Meadow's friend Karina and Jabari's sister, come to them with some insight and some pretty wise words. Who was your favorite character, G?
I liked Meadow as a character, but I've always hated the whole not communicating when something comes in the way of your relationship thing. Mm-hmm. So Karina was funny. She was kind of weird. She was just ready to get to do some weird stuff on a first date, a blind date, no less. She didn't even know this guy before. So I really like Jabari's sister. She gets like 5 minutes at most of screen time, but she had a really, really, really good line.
Yes, about loving on purpose. Yeah, that was a great. There was that, and then also later on when Karina talks to Meadow outside the show, and basically
I like that too.
Yeah, is like, if this is what you want, you kind of have to put yourself out there and you have to be vulnerable and stuff. And I think it's pretty pertinent to, I guess, anyone who's ever felt that way. I think love, it can be easy if you sort of accidentally step into it, but there's also hard work involved. There's compromise and sacrifice and give and take. And the good will always outweigh the bad, especially when you're in a good committed relationship. And I think that it was interesting because at the beginning of the story, Jabari meets up with his ex and they sort of tumble into this thing. And it's interesting because Jabari's ex just immediately assumed that they were picking up where they had left off.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah, that was weird. And then like calling her mother, and then the mother asking to speak to him, and he was like, what is going on?
Weird.
Yeah. And then just the whole afterwards, because to his credit, Jabari was always honest with her. He basically was like, this is not this serious. Was a mistake, and this is not what you think it is. And then later on, she creeps up again and does something wild that ultimately leads to Jabari and Meadow kind of being on the outs. What did you think of the ex's character?
I didn't like her, but I thought that she was like well portrayed in the fact that she's kind of wanted him to get back under her thumb or whatever.
Yeah. It's very human, I think, especially.
Definitely.
They don't really go into who broke up with who.
No, I don't think they ever say.
They don't ever say, but it's almost like she just assumed that they would get back together. And that's I think when you've been hurt or when you've been with, he even mentions that he's known her for 10 years, which is, I mean, that's a big part of your life. They don't really tell you how long they were together as a couple, but it is hard to turn off those feelings. But he obviously had moved on.
Yeah.
But she hadn't. And I think it's very human to feel that, especially after you've been in a relationship that's been that long. So in a lot of ways, I think as much as you don't want to see that because it's like, oh, girl, get it together, right? But at the same time, it's like, it's almost refreshing to see that kind of aspect because that definitely, I think, speaks to the human experience. That is something that does happen. I mean, not just with women, I'm sure with men as well, that they're like, oh, maybe there's a chance here of us getting back together.
Yeah, no, the lingering feelings.
Right. What did you think of Jabari's friends?
I thought they were funny.
They were funny.
I know his wife, one of his friends was called Jimmy, but I have no idea what the other one was called.
Oh, I'm gonna look. Jimmy was Timothée Chalamet, I think, right? Yeah.
He was the buzz cut guy. Yeah, the one who was like obsessed with
weed.
Yeah, more than the other ones.
There's a lot of weed.
There's so much smoking. It is to the point where it's just like, oh my God. Like the whole brushing your teeth with it is just
ridiculous.
The first thing Jabari does when he wakes up, his lights went up. He asks some random woman for a lighter.
Even the ex, right?
Yeah.
After the next day, Carmen. His friend's name was Kai. Yeah,
I thought Kai was very funny.
Kai was very funny.
Yeah.
He relates a very interesting story.
Very interesting. Yeah. And I like the way that it was drawn.
Yes.
Everything in this movie, nothing looks weird. I like the way the entire movie looks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely good animation here.
Yeah.
And even though I think when Kai is telling his story, that's done in 2D, the rest of this movie is basically 3D, I think. And
there's also Karina's story.
Oh, yes. Karina's story is also 2D, I believe.
Yeah. I like how they switched the art style for both things.
Yes.
Like Karina's story, the art style was fitting with that.
Yeah. And Kai's story looked different, too. It was like a different animated style. Mm-hmm. But still blended well. It kind of reminded me of like Gumball, how sometimes they would mix and match stuff.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I like the differentiating with the styles.
Yeah. What do you think the characters could have done differently?
Like which ones? Just Jabari and Meadow?
I guess Jabari and Meadow and like their whole situation, right? Like what could they have done differently so that they didn't have to go through this kind of weird patch? Or
definitely communicate better. Like she asks him, were you with her? Like it said, he's like, I'm sorry if that hurts you or whatever. Like he says nothing happens, but that's not the way you answer that question.
Right, because you're not thinking, like he does say nothing happens, but he had already said yes.
Yeah.
And the yes is the thing that's in her mind because she's thinking, oh, he slept with her. But meanwhile, and it's funny because the film tells you, like, I guess she called him because there was a rat in her apartment.
Yeah, there was nothing sexual going on. Like, pretty much the opposite. Rats are not.
Yeah.
Yuck.
But then Carmen took it upon herself to send that naughty picture.
Completely unnecessary.
Although, I mean, it wasn't like she was naked or anything. It was just
she wasn't.
It was very provocative.
But
photo.
Exactly. Yeah. And the something's always fit text with the heart was just weird.
Yeah, that's a little much. Yeah.
Very much
especially when you're talking about your ex.
Yeah,
and he's an ex for a reason.
It's been a month since he's like, let's just be friends.
Yeah. That was another thing that popped up. He did say that they had been intimate a month ago. So in that month, he and Meadow had really
moved really fast.
What do you think of that?
I mean, I thought that it was all right. Like it wasn't
with the story.
Yeah, like I don't like love at first sight at all. I think it's dumb. But these two weren't, although they were clearly attracted to each other from the start, they weren't like jumping on each other until they had gone on a date. No matter, they didn't think so, but it was a date. They went for food. And like Karina said, they were in the rain taking a romantic stroll. That was completely a date. So they had interacted before, and they were both clearly attracted to each other. So I think that the way it progressed, it was fast, but like...
It made sense.
It made sense, and it wasn't as fast as Karina's. You, like, in the story, she tells of how she, like, meets her husband. It's a blind date, and things happen way quicker. And there's no, like, trying to resist. Like, Jabari and Meadow are both telling their friends, I'm not going to sleep with my neighbor.
Right.
Of course they do, but at least they were trying to, like, resist the temptation.
Yeah. What else did you think of the film?
I liked it, like the story and everything. I thought that it was like, it could be realistic, like that could happen. And obviously the way that it looked was beautiful. Like,
yes, agreed.
The way the characters were designed, I liked. There wasn't really an ugly character design. Like, I didn't dislike any of them. And the shots just of like the city were beautiful. I loved the way that they used the colors in this.
Yeah, I agree. I love when, I mean, I've always, as a New Yorker, born and raised, I've always loved my city and how it's portrayed in the movies, especially when, again, it's featured so prominently and just lovingly, and I think you get that sense here. It's almost like an additional character to the story. So yeah, I liked it a lot. I think this was really fun. It's a little naughty. I don't know if I would call it TVMA. I mean, I guess it's mature.
It is mature, not for kids.
It's definitely not for kids. There is instances of smoking.
Lots and lots of smoking.
And there's instances of sexual activity.
Yeah, Netflix gives you the warning, like the nudity, sex, smoking, drug usage, whatever.
I mean, you don't see front shots, but you see butts.
Yes.
What else? A few curse words, not too many, I think, here and there.
They were cursing like a
but it
good
wasn't
amount.
It wasn't excessive. It wasn't.
I mean, it wasn't that excessive, but they were definitely like, you heard them curse.
Yeah, so this is definitely, even though it is an animated story, this is definitely not for children.
Not at
We watched it with our eldest because she's very mature and she had wanted to watch this, and we were both there to talk and
this was take 2 of watching the movie though, because we had to stop because we didn't think it'd be that bad, so we were all gonna watch it together. And then Dad looked like he was gonna have a stroke. When they started
we initially watched it, the 4 of us, with Kid 2, and yeah.
Not the best idea, I guess.
Not the best idea. I mean, I wasn't as bothered as your father, but I mean, I respect your dad, and just he wasn't happy and not comfortable with Kid 2 watching this stuff, and I sort of agree. She can be a little mature about these things.
Yeah.
When she's older, I guess.
I mean, it's not like it's anything she hasn't seen before, but she's not really good at like keeping a lid on all that.
Right. Yeah, we don't want her repeating stuff to other kids, and
especially not some of the terms they were using in this movie.
Yes. Because then that becomes an issue, and yeah. Let's see. Anything else we want to talk about in this film? What did you think of Meadow as a character?
I did like Meadow. Like, she wasn't insane, and she was, when that thing happened, although she didn't communicate, she was like ready to take a step back instead of being all crazy. Like, there's a scene where his friend Jimmy and Jabari are at this, like, they're biking around in this area.
Oh, right.
And this guy's like, my ex keeps texting me, and then it's explained how he's not broken up with this girl. She has no idea that she is his ex, and he just like expects her to know since he's ghosting her. And he's like, yeah, well, if I like, they're like, you gotta break up with her, man. And then he's like, what, face to face? And then he's like, I guess he's scared of this girl.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that Meadow wasn't insane and she wasn't the kind of girl that Jabari would need to call the cops on.
Exactly. I think another thing about that scene, it felt very true.
Yeah, that can happen.
I can see a young man doing that. Like,
oh my God, yeah.
I don't want to be in the middle of some ugly business, so I'm just gonna ghost this girl and hope that she figures out that I'm not interested.
Not mature. You need to communicate.
Yeah.
That guy needed to communicate, and so did Meadow and Jabari. Which eventually, after like being all longing and whatever for a couple of days, they did.
Yeah. And he does a grand gesture that I thought was very cute, and then,
it wasn't like it was public, but it wasn't like he was like in front of like a bunch of people professing his love or whatever.
Right,
it was
and
something that only she would understand.
Yes, and I think that was another nice thing about it too. It was definitely like a personal experience or like a personal thing that they had shared,
like sort of like an inside joke between them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think not just the boys, but also girls, if you're doing this, don't ghost people. Yeah, just be upfront. If you don't want to be with somebody, don't waste their time. Don't waste your time. And just end it.
Yeah, so Meadow was level-headed, and I like that about her. She was also creative because of her profession. Although, one thing, and Dad pointed this out while we were watching, I don't understand how either of them could afford such nice apartments at that point in time, because it wasn't really like steady income. Like they were just sort of starting off about getting big.
I mean, maybe inherited wealth. I don't know.
That could be it, but I don't know.
And they definitely owned those apartments. I don't think they were renters.
The
the window situation, I was like, wow, I love windows like that.
Those floor to ceiling, and they were high up, so it's not like anyone could just like look in at you. So yeah, I do like those floor to ceiling ones. They lit in a bunch of light, and just like the designs of the buildings, like the way they looked when they turned the lights on, they were cool.
Yeah. She also had a really nice aesthetic, I think, Meadow's apartment. I liked it. Was like a total vibe for sure.
Yeah, and I just like, I don't know. There was like this little alcove that she made her developing room. I think that she designed that herself. Like that wasn't the intention of it before. I think she hung like a curtain in front of it. So she was creative, and she made that apartment her own. Yeah,
for sure. I'm trying to think anything else we need to talk about. I think it was nice to have Karina, Meadow's friend. I think she was a great friend. I think she gave really solid advice. She was funny. She was kind.
Definitely funny.
Yeah, definitely funny. And just the kind of friend that you want in your corner. I think it was Ellie, Jabari's sister. She was great. She obviously was older and definitely
more sensible,
a great sounding board. I think looping her in and being honest and talking to her definitely helped him settle, I guess, things, because that's when he goes to Carmen to basically say, listen.
Yeah, he puts up the boundaries more firm. Like when they had slept together and he's like, let's just be friends. It wasn't as firm as him being like, yo, I'm kind of with someone and I really like her.
Yeah. And I sort of felt bad for Carmen because it was like she still had, I guess, residual feelings for Jabari. Yeah. And again, hoping that this relationship would resume. But I think when he was more firm and upfront and honest, she understood, because definitely by the end of their interaction, she basically was like, you'll be blocked by the time you get downstairs. Yeah. Which was funny because his friends had told him to block her.
Jimmy's like, it's time to block Carmen. And that's when he's like, I've known her for like 10 years. I can't do that.
Anything else you want to add?
Oh, no. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was pretty, and I liked the story and the characters. None of them were unlikable. Although Carmen was obviously like kind of an obstacle. She was portrayed well.
Yeah. I mean, I still think you could empathize for her. Mm-hmm. Scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this?
I'd give this like an 8.5.
8.5? I think I would give it an 8. I know you're not part of the review, but what would you give it?
I would give it, I would probably say 7.5, 8. It was good.
What did you think? Since you're now on the mic, from the male perspective, what did you think of the story?
I thought, I mean, yeah, I guess, from the male perspective, probably well told. The relationship that he had with his friends was very spot on. I mean, guys act like that. The most unrealistic part of this movie was the place that they lived.
She just mentioned that.
Yeah, that was unreal. Some guy
They had very, very nice apartments.
Maybe it was generational wealth and they had money to buy these places. You don't know that.
It must have been, because there's no way that some aspiring photographer is living in a loft. Like her loft was way bigger than his.
Yeah.
And his was big and nice.
Yeah.
And there was like the top floor of some building in Manhattan.
Yes.
Get the hell out of here. But as far as like the relationship drama and all that, it was a story well told. I mean, you had like here's the honeymoon period, and here comes the bit of strife, and it worked out. Of course, the strife is sort of like emphasized or made worse by the fact that people just don't know how to answer questions.
She mentioned that as well.
Yeah,
communication is key.
bad communication could have
much so.
Yeah, just standing there and actually saying what you mean probably would have solved it, but then you wouldn't have the drama. You need the drama because it's a movie.
Who's your favorite character? If you say Downtown Pat, I'm gonna punch you.
That guy was weird.
It's funny how like that was Macaulay Culkin.
Oh my God.
The character looked exactly like Macaulay Culkin.
You know,
when
now
he
that
was
you
like,
mentioned it, I sort of see it, but like when I
Yeah,
was watching
I mean,
it,
I
I'm
don't
like,
know- I
who is
don't-
that? His voice sounds somewhat familiar.
I don't know if Macaulay Culkin ever had a drug problem, but there was a stage in his life where he looked like he had a severe drug problem, and they were like, model Downtown Pat after that part of Macaulay Culkin's life. Because I've seen pictures of him now, and he does not look like that.
No,
but there was a point where
He might have had a substance
he
problem,
looked like that long, stringy, greasy hair.
Yeah.
A favorite character, I guess Jabari and Meadow. I mean, yeah, the other characters were entertaining.
Kai was ridiculous.
Kai was ridiculous. He was like the heavy comedy relief.
Yeah.
His other friend,
Jimmy
was sort of like the guy who acts like he's got it all together. That's like another thing about this movie. This is definitely, we're all in our early 20s.
Stupid.
We all live with our head up our ass.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're talking about, but we like to sound like we do.
Yeah. What was his line? Like, you know, I can't be with a girl who might be too clingy in case I have to go away or something.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell are you talking about, Timothée Chalamet?
Yeah, like he is just this mogul of some kind.
Yeah,
this
he's
pot
Scarface.
mogul. Yeah, I don't know what was going on with that dude. But yeah, all the characters, they were very well portrayed, I thought.
Yeah.
Everybody had a unique personality. Everybody had a unique look. I love the way this thing was drawn.
Yeah. G
Very
mentioned that
nicely
too.
done. Reminded me a lot of
Spider-Verse. Kind of, no?
Spider-Verse, and also what was that show? The show on Netflix. You know what I'm talking about, G.
Arcane.
Oh my God, yeah. I was thinking about that
it's-
while we were watching.
It's like 3D, but in a sort of painterly sort of style.
Yeah.
I would say this was probably borrowing a bit more from Spider-Verse. I mean, it's obviously not reaching that level of polish that Spider-Verse has, but it did. I mean, it doesn't look like some sort of cheap knockoff ripoff. They really did a great job.
Yeah.
The backgrounds, the backdrops are beautiful.
G also mentioned, I don't know if you were listening before, but she mentioned how when Kai is telling that story and Karina are telling their stories, how it's drawn differently, but it still looked good and it sort of blended in. And I mentioned how kind of like Gumball, how sometimes they mash different styles together.
Do you mean the styles like when he's with the laundry lady
Yeah.
and the other guy with the
On the first date, Karina, the blind date with the
yes,
then
and
guy,
also
now husband.
what was it?
Downtown Pat.
Downtown
Downtown
Pat also
Pat
had
also
his,
had
Yeah,
his-
he had like the scribbly doodle.
Yeah, his
kind
was
of
a little bit
style.
more rudimentary, but still just it all worked. And I liked how that separation to kind of talk about things from the past.
Yes, they
to
did. They
differentiate.
did a nice job with that as well. Yeah. And also just when that was going on, there was also like a different bit of like the color palettes were a bit different.
Sure.
I think Jabari's is more of like a reddish and hers was more of a blue.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Very, very nice.
And I'm colorblind and I was able to tell that.
And also the soundtrack, which is all Kid Cudi. I think that album is playing prominently in the background.
I mean,
you don't know anything about that.
Zero. I know zero about that.
Terrible.
I heard a lot.
You know who Kid Cudi is.
I've heard his name. I'd never heard any of his music. Is that what it generally sounds like?
Yeah.
A lot of auto-tune sort of voice.
Sort of. I mean, not always. He's got an interesting sound. I think he's got an interesting voice.
It was nice and it fit like perfectly. I mean,
yeah.
Seriously, if
this was like one long music video, kind of.
Some aspects of it, yeah. Like the dates, they're floating through the cosmos.
Yeah,
and
I like the way
colors
they
in
did
the
that
background.
too.
I like the way they did that too.
It was never shown that way with Jabari and Carmen, so Meadow was clearly
clearly his person.
Yeah, like they were.
Like Karina said,
they were like fireworks going off behind in their minds.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So that was.
But I think okay. So you know what? I'm glad that you both brought this up because as much as you both claim that there is no love at first sight, you know when you meet someone, you feel that spark. And I think that this movie does a really good job of portraying that. Again,
you know what? You could say that, but his sister says the truth. And you know the line I'm talking about.
Yes.
What was it?
Falling
in love by accident is
love
easy.
is the easiest thing when it's by accident. When it gets hard is when you put effort.
When you
do
it on purpose.
Yeah.
So there's your freaking love at first sight nonsense.
And even if you claimed it was love at first sight, a spark is much different. Being in love is so much different than liking someone.
Or just lusting after them.
Yeah.
It's not all intermingled?
No, everything is different.
Being in love requires true effort, like true love.
You think this requires effort?
There is some effort involved. Love has some levels of tolerance to it.
What does that mean?
I do things that annoy you, and you do things that annoy me, and that's just how it is. The reason why we are still in love is because we realize that those things, the annoying things, are not important.
What do I do that annoys you?
I just brought in 2 more things that you bought. What? I'm sure we don't need whatever the hell is in those packages.
It's not for you.
Whatever.
It's not for you. How about that?
Whatever.
Terrible.
And I'm sure you'd like me to empty the dishwasher more.
You know, I always find you the sexiest when you help with house chores. You know that.
All right. This doesn't have anything to do with the movie anymore. Why don't we wrap this up?
Did you give a number? Because you actually, I mean, even though this review
I
did.
I said between 7 and 8.
Yeah.
7 and 8. Okay, yeah. So I gave it an 8. You gave it an 8.5.
Yeah, around
there. Yeah,
there.
I think definitely this is definitely a must watch. Again, not for children. Not for children. We made a mistake. And definitely adult themes, mature content. But
a lot of pot smoking.
A lot of pop smoking.
So much.
But still, just a really good story. It flowed very well. It's gorgeous. It's so beautiful to look at. And a good soundtrack as well. I guess Intergalactic is a good album. So if you haven't purchased it, get out there and get to it. And when you have the chance, head on over to Netflix and check out Intergalactic from 2022.
I just want to say the way it's spelled, it's Entergalactic.
Entergalactic. Sorry. Yes. It's Entergalactic. I kept saying Intergalactic. That's a Beastie Boys song.
Beastie Boys album.
Whoops. It's Entergalactic.
Yes.
Entergalactic. Yeah, go check it out on Netflix. You won't be disappointed. Again, not for children.
Not at all.
Rated TV MA. And that's it from us, and we will come back with another review soon. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.